Hello there, and welcome to Adonai in Art, where we look at temporary art and put it under the lens of the eternal artist. As always, I'm your host, Noel Davison, and I'm so thankful that you are here with me today. And happy Spider-Man Day! That's my birthday kazoo. I don't have a party horn, but hey, it's a special day. At least when this episode is going to be released, it will be National Spider-Man Day. And it was chosen because apparently Spidey's first comic book was released in August of 1962. But it was August 10th, not August 1st. But you know what? Corporation said this is National Spider-Man Day, so I will happily accommodate for them. And hey, what better piece of Spider-Man media could I talk about than a movie that people consider not only one of the best Spider-Man movies of all time, but maybe even the best superhero movie of all time, of all of them, bar none. And that film is Spider-Man 2. Not the amazing one, not the Far From Home one, not the one with multiple animated characters and going across the verse. No. This is the one with Dr. Octopus and the Pizza Time meme. And Spider-Man 2, this is one of those films I watched all the time when I was a little kid. Now, I didn't dedicate Spider-Man 2 to my memory like I did with Ratatouille and The Incredibles, which, by the way, The Incredibles is also on my future episode wish list, so get ready for that. But Spider-Man 2 is cinematic comfort food for me. The opening credits accompanied by Danny Elfman's score still gives me chills and nostalgia every time I watch it. When I was preparing for this episode, just watching it on my own, watching it on YouTube, just the intro by itself, because that's what I do with my free time, I always get so excited to hear it. It brings back such good memories. And that's just one of the many, many reasons that Spider-Man 2 is such a great movie. I have watched this over and over and over and over again, and I have deeply grown to appreciate it as one of my main introductions to the character of Spider-Man, my love of Dr. Octopus, and just many other elements that make this franchise so engaging for me. But as you might have guessed by my phrasing earlier, or if you had listened to my Into the Spider-Verse episode, I don't think Spider-Man 2 is the best Spidey movie. Sorry, I think Into the Spider-Verse, just as a story, as its own narrative, and with the themes it tackles, it's just so much better. I personally rank Spider-Man 2 as my fourth favorite Spider-Man movie, and the ones above it are Across the Spider-Verse is number 3, No Way Home for 2, and Into the Spider-Verse for 1. But those are 3, incredible superhero movies, so I'm not saying Spider-Man 2 is a dumpster fire because it hit 4th place. It's like comparing a Big Mac to the most prestige cheeseburgers in the entire US. No, this is still really good. There's just 3 other masterpieces of art that I think are better. And like I said, I love this movie, but as I've thought about this episode and as I prepared to talk about it, one aspect of my gushing when it comes to celebrating pieces of art has been just saying what I love about it, saying what has moved me, what's excited me. But I think there's another part of it where I can tease the art I love. I can almost dig into the things that I don't think are perfect about it. And this episode is going to be a celebration of the movie's strengths. And it has a powerful message I cannot wait to use as a compass towards the Bible. But this episode will also be a roast session at points. I have spent many a years, and I've seen many of its strengths, and plenty of moments that generally get overlooked by people that call this the best superhero movie ever, and I feel comfortable saying that as someone who loves it. You don't have to engage with art and think it is perfect all the way through for it to still resonate with you. I'm not trying to be a hater or a cynical jerk when I bring up flaws. It's just a part of the fun of me getting to talk about this movie, being completely honest about it. I would want people to be honest with me, my strengths and my weaknesses, and even just talking about the weaknesses, it can just further point out the strengths. And so, yeah, in Spider-Man 2's case, the weird choices make it its own art, even if I think it's bad. And kind of like the Star Wars prequels, some of the weird stuff in Spider-Man 2 helps make this film so dang memorable. Spider-Man 2 is full of wacky performances, goofy lines, even goofier delivery of said lines through those wacky performances, and it gives the Raimi trilogy a distinct identity that makes me love them so much. It's lines I will happily quote with friends in and out of context of Spider-Man. Some movies are so good that they lock you into their narrative, and it doesn't matter what emotion they give you, whether it's riding a sandworm or dealing with the fallout of powerful prophecy. It be serious, it can be funny, it can be sad, it can be whatever it wants to, but if the story is so good, it's going to keep you engaged in the world with the characters, and you're going to feel everything they're going through. It's not going to take you out of it. But by contrast, this film's energy thrives off of genuine pathos and really awkward moments that take you out of the narrative and made 5-year-old Noel ask, is this how humans actually talk? I mean, yeah, you've got the comic relief characters like Peter's Russian landlord, Mr. Ditkovich, his amazing daughter Ursula, the Daily Bugle. But then you also get those random extras who will say some of the most random things or just do random stuff throughout this movie. In Spider-Man 2 alone, we get Mr. Z's yelling, "Go!" Those two random kids Peter tells to eat their vegetables, and one goes, "That's what my mom's always saying. I didn't actually believe her." There's the woman who sees the flipped over car. It's a web. The long-haired dude that just straight up takes one pizza slice, closes the box for then Spidey to web it out of his hand. Like, it's just those little things. I'm like, what? Why did you do it that way? That goes with like almost everyone on the train, the kids' weird grammar when they're talking to Spider-Man. And my favorite extra in the whole movie, it's that guy who sees Peter run into the alley with a box of pizzas, and then he watched Spider-Man come out of the alley with the pizza boxes, and he goes, "Whoa! He stole that guy's pizza!" What do I need to do to meet this person in real life and shake his hand for that delivery? And on the one hand, there are some people that will listen, and they're going to see this as a threat to their beloved film, and will fire back with, "The camp is intentional. Sam Raimi was trying to emulate the feeling of the original comics with the dialogue and the performances. It's supposed to be weird. You're not meant to take it too seriously." And I agree with them. I understand that's what Raimi is trying to emulate, and there's times where I think he does a good job. I love that. You need to have humor in a story, especially one where your main character wears tight red and blue spandex and fights people with robot arms or green goblin suits. But I think there's a way of navigating the goofy moments with the serious ones. And while I still believe the camp in Spider-Man 2 and all of the trilogy is intentional, there are scenes in this where you're supposed to take it seriously. Peter's dialogue with Mary Jane, his story with Aunt May, Harry Osborn, a lot of Doc Ock's story. These are the moments I'm talking about where the silliness takes on a different form. It'll still make me laugh, but it makes me laugh in a place where I don't think it was intentional, or I think it shouldn't have been intentional. For example, there's the giant bags of gold coins at the bank scene, and my thought is, why is this not regular cash? Why is Doc Ock stealing the McDuck fortune? And why does Joel McHale act like this weird guy and he's gonna steal a gold coin? It's like, what is this adding to the scene aside from, oh yeah, Sam Raimi Spidey movies are kinda goofy? And then there's things like Doc Ock's arms holding the bottle of whiskey, lighting his cigar, talking to him by moving their claws-like lips. You hear like, "No, rubbings." And it sometimes happens in places, like I said, where I think it actually hurts the story because they put the silliness in a serious situation. Yeah, Spider-Man 2 has its fun, it has the weird moments, but what about that scene where the Doc Ock arms brutally murder an entire room of nurses? Like, straight up arms going through people, dragging someone into the darkness while her nails are scraping against the ground? And they're all dead, but then Octavius gets the blindfold taken off, and instead of something more he goes into, "No!" Like he was Darth Vader, and then his arms move like they're screaming, "No!" with him. And it makes me laugh, but at the same time, this does not feel like the tone the movie should take in that moment. And that's like all throughout the movie. I don't want to give every single thing, because again, I don't want to sound like a cynical hater, but it's in the movie. That's how I perceived it. But that doesn't take away from me loving Dr. Octopus in this. This version of his character is great. I like that he's a more tragic interpretation of the villain. In the comics, and even just some more recent ones, they've leaned into Otto Octavius just being a pure, arrogant tool of a person who is selfish to the end. And there is a certain charm of that in a villain, and I like that this doesn't exactly follow that. I like that Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus has a genuine sense of morality. He has a seemingly noble quest on the surface to create sun power to help Earth's energy or whatever it's supposed to do. And I like that his evil at least originates from him learning to bend his morals because of the voices in his head. But some people will call this version of Dr. Octopus perfect or the best, and I personally just don't think that. He is written a little too inconsistently at points for me. Angered and grieved by the loss of his spouse and his life's work, that makes sense. That would drive someone to want to make some bad moral choices. I understand that. But one scene of his AI arms talking to him, and we go into the bank scene where he happily kidnaps and threatens Aunt May's life. He tries to kill multiple people with no remorse on the train scene and other places. And while you could say, well, the arms are influencing him, he was being controlled by them. It's only in No Way Home where it's described as the AI controlling him. So in this movie, it's conveyed more like Octavius is under their heavy, dark influence. And there is a good appeal to that. I think it just takes away from him being as complex as people make him out to be, because it turns into the voices talk to him and he goes from I'm grieved by the loss of my wife and I'm going to do some things to push my science forward versus yeah, I'm gonna smile while dropping an old lady off a building or stabbing Spider-Man. Scenes of him tossing people off the train to distract Spidey, it just doesn't gel with my mind with the more human side of him. I think there was a better way to write that perspective, because instead it feels more like he's flip-flopping his evil mode like a light switch. And yet that doesn't take away from his deeply profound ending that we'll talk about later, and the amazing performance from Alfred Molina. He sells every scene he's in, from when he needs to be sympathetic, from when he's tapping into the evil charisma of Dr. Octopus. Alfred Molina gives a Shakespearean quality to every scene he's in. I think in every frame, he is putting his full heart into the cheese and the genuine heartfelt performance to make Otto Octavius come to life, from his line delivery and his body language. It's a fantastic performance. And speaking of fantastic performances, everyone in the Daily Bugle does so good. I've talked about moments where the comic relief kind of feels unintentional or just doesn't fit with the scene, but Sam Raimi somehow learned how to turn the whole location of the Daily Bugle into a fun place to just kind of let comic relief ideas run around freely and naturally. It's so well done and made even better by the, I'd say, perfect casting of each character in this supporting cast. Elizabeth Banks as Eddie Brandt is great even when she's not given much. Bill Nunn as Robbie Robertson just perfectly captures the character with like the 6 or 7 lines he has in this film. Ted Raimi as Hoffman is great, even though I never remember his name as Hoffman, just that he's Sam Raimi's brother, but he's funny, so I'm like, hey, I love Sam Raimi's brother. And of course, the perfect performance of J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. Listen, I am not a gatekeeper and someone who says only one person should play a certain role. They're the only version of this character that matters. I think that's stupid. There have been so many great JJJs throughout media, from the 90s show to the PS4 game to the original 60s show, but this version of J. Jonah Jameson is by far my favorite. JK just perfectly fits the voice and personality of the character. There's a reason why everyone says that Simmons just is J. Jonah Jameson. It really does feel like J. Jonah Jameson was just brought to life. And that's another reason why they keep bringing him back for the role in movies and shows and video games, whatever. He just so naturally makes J. Jonah Jameson engaging, and he's given the best lines in all the trilogy. And those engaging characters keep going even past the Bugle into the great cameo character of Bruce Campbell. I love seeing him in all of these movies. He's one of my all-time favorite actors, and his cameos are always so fun and charismatic. He is chewing the camp of this movie and swallowing it to create his own characters. And they're like barely in any of these movies, from the wrestling announcer to the theater usher in this one, and then the weird French guy in the third one. But he always does such a great job. And here, I love his little mannerisms and how he just politely shuts down Peter wanting to get into the theater. Like, I probably shouldn't be rooting for Campbell because the movie wants me to root for Peter and feel bad for life getting him down so much. But if you're going to be turned down by an intense rule follower, few people can do it as swiftly and entertaining as Bruce freaking Campbell does. And going back to the Dickoviches, the Russian people in the apartment, they're just great. I love their goofy energy that they have throughout the second and third movie. But they never feel too stupid or that they're being offensive to Russia, at least from an American perspective. It just is a nice blend of silly. And everyone said it, and I'm going to add to the voices, Ursula Dickovich is so much better than Mary Jane Watson. Ursula is so kind to Peter. She gives him chocolate cake and milk just because, says hi, and yet in the third movie, she keeps supporting Peter to pursue Mary Jane. She is so much of a better woman than MJ is ever portrayed to be in these films. If I was going to turn this into a seeking a Proverbs 31 woman over a worldly woman kind of idea, Ursula would be a great place to start in that. It's like, you want a girl like Ursula, the cute blonde twin braids, and just such a kind lady at heart. So Peter, you done messed up by not pursuing this beautiful Russian-American soul. But to be fair, that leads into one of the big problems of this movie, and honestly the entire trilogy, that really should have been refined. The romance of Peter and MJ. Nearly all of their dialogue makes me cringe. I get Peter's supposed to be an awkward, nerdy guy. That's been like his overview since the first comic book. But he's given such terrible lines, and Maguire's performance just adds to that awkward cringiness. I'm real. Punch me, I plead. It's hard for me to connect with the awkwardness and still find it endearing when it's written so stupid. It's the same energy we got from the first film where Peter goes, I cried like a baby when you played Cinderella. And that's only one half of the coin, because on the one hand, I'm like, oh, Peter's dialogue, I want to root for you, dude, but you're just so bad at this. You're not endearing. You're just a creep. And then the other side of it is MJ, who is such a manipulative person in this movie. She starts dating John Jameson, she accepts his marriage proposal, and during this whole time, it's played as her trying to make Peter jealous, or at least get back at him for never fully committing to her. And that includes the weird kiss connection in the cafe that she does before with John, all to point to her kiss with Spider-Man because she'll know her true love based on the feeling of an upside-down kiss? I don't know. Like, maybe the problem is I'm single, so I don't understand the impact of a kiss or something, but it's stupid. It's just very dumb. They don't write it in a way where it feels endearing. It's just weird. It's just making me sit there and go, okay, this cafe scene sucks. Doc Ock, can you throw the car now? I mean, for crying out loud, MJ leaves John Jameson at the wedding altar to go be with Peter. She is in the dress and she runs to his apartment. And that's so unfair to John's feelings. Like, okay, if you don't actually want to be with him, yes, that will hurt him, but you owe it to someone to be honest, to be kind, to not repress your true thoughts and feelings until the point where you're going to hurt them a lot more than if you were just sitting in that apartment and said, John, you seem like a nice guy, but I want to pursue Peter. And yes, this happened after Peter told her the truth about Spider-Man, and that probably changed her perspective a little bit, but it just gets tiring of seeing this, because I don't want to root for them. MJ treats John horribly, and it's so disrespectful to John's feelings. I get that she's tired of Peter going back and forth on his affection. That's a fault on Peter's part too that was not handled well. And it is human, but the resolution and how they address it does not convey a good moral compass for it. It's just, well, they're supposed to be together, and the movie does a bad job paving the road for them to be together. I don't root for Peter with his awkward simp dialogue, and I don't root for apathetic, selfish MJ. And I want to clarify, I don't blame the actors for that one. I honestly think the direction is blamed here. And I don't even want to be disrespectful to the direction or the performance. This is not an attack on anyone's character because I think this was bad. It's just something that I say in as much love as I can while being honest about my feelings in hope that this can be written better, which in my opinion in Spider-Man media has been written a lot better. And speaking of being written better, a lot of people talk about the Peter and MJ stuff, so I'm not saying anything new in this regard. But I feel like so little people will talk about Harry Osborn in this movie. And again, I am not trying to say anything about James Franco as a person. And in terms of his acting talent, I have not seen him in enough movies to give my opinion on how I think he is generally. But man, if we're going to talk about something that needed refining, Harry Osborn, his story makes sense. The path he takes in this film to get to the third one, I think, is really good and makes sense. He is heartbroken over the death of his father. He believes that Peter is hiding who Spider-Man is to hurt Harry when he doesn't know that his dad was a terrorist. And so he loses the funding on Doc Ock's project. He is alone, he's angry, drinking to try and help his pain, and then he learns his best friend is Spider-Man. So the story all the way through makes sense, but the way Harry acts to get to these points, he's really just a cartoon of a human being. Like, the way he yells at Otto, "I'm in charge here!" Or his really stupid line of, "I have nothing left except Spider-Man." Like, I know what he's trying to say, that he's lost everything and now all he has left is his anger for Spider-Man because blah, 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 Spider-Man took everything. But the way he says that in the moment is like, what? No! I get you're venting, but at the same time, you don't have Spider-Man. And also, you're still rich. I know they say that Doc Ock's experiment was going to be the thing that helped push Oscorp. He was going to go into bankruptcy or something. But he still has a mansion at the end of this movie. He still has his butler. He doesn't sell anything. He still has whiskey. So honestly, it seems like he's doing okay. And when we go into the third movie, he's still going to theater productions. And again, he still has his mansion and his butler. And he has food. So it doesn't seem like he really lost too much, which I think makes his performance even goofier. And again, I think that's more Sam Raimi than it is James Franco. But still, I'm surprised no one really talks about Harry Osborn in these movies. His journey makes sense, but the way they write that, the way he acts, does not make me sympathize with him, but just laugh at how ridiculous and over the top he is. And again, these are just my thoughts on the movie and what I think worked and what I think didn't. And it's just one of the reasons where I say, no, I think this is a great film. I want to keep talking about why I think Spider-Man 2 is great. But these things just stick in my brain whenever I watch it. And so I wanted to be honest, because I think being honest about something you love is so much better than just saying the high points and ignoring the low. But I say that in the perspective of, I say the low, but they don't matter as much as the highs. Like I said, there is so much to love about this movie. For example, the visuals of this movie. I've always loved how bright and colorful Spider-Man 2 is. The whole trilogy, even when we're at nighttime, we can still clearly see everything. The buildings have this very nice golden glow with the sunrise and sunset. I always love how bright Spider-Man is in scenes where you can just follow everything. And that couples alongside the action scenes. And I'll talk about those in a second. But what I really like about how bright and colorful the movie is that it perfectly reflects the character of Spider-Man. Even in the dark scenes, even in the sad moments that this movie doesn't shy away from and are very important to the character, it never feels too hopeless. It never gets to a point where it's too dark, where it might have the visual style of Man of Steel, where it starts to feel depressing. You feel sad, but there's always a bit of light, because Spider-Man is a character of hope. And so even though we have the darker things, I like the visuals not only still look so good all these years later, but also convey the optimism that comes from Spider-Man. It makes those moments where he starts swinging again and Danny Elfman's score wells up so much better. And Danny Elfman's score is magnificent. I already brought up the intro music, but everything, the quiet, still moments, the triumphant, sweeping moments, all of it just comes together to make this movie come to life. I know that after watching this, a lot of people set the bar high for like, this is how Spider-Man music's supposed to feel. It's triumphant, it's grand, and yet it also is hopeful. That's what I think makes a great Spider-Man theme. And while there's many ways you can go with it, and many composers have done a great job, I think the scores in every Spider-Man movie and show up till this point are still pretty dang good. But the best ones are the ones that really capture the heart and excitement that come from seeing Spider-Man, that he is a hero that you would want to see come to your rescue. And that plays into Dr. Octopus's theme as well. It's a very simple thump thump with the horns where it just gives the impact of his arms, but also just like a warning. Whenever you hear it, it's a warning that a powerful man has just entered your presence. And that coupled with the action scenes I talked about again, they're still fist pumping and so much fun to watch all these years later. While I don't think Spider-Man 2 is the best superhero movie ever made, it might have some of the best action scenes ever made. The train scene. Mwah, magnificent. Coupled with the very impressive effects from the very nice integration of CGI Spidey, the way he'll spin through a building, the way they go back and forth from choreography and fighting, the practical effects of the claws mixed with the CGI, it's all very seamless. And while people could sit down and be like, oh, well, it's not as good looking back, it hasn't held up too well, this is a movie that was made in the early 2000s, so obviously the CGI isn't going to look as crisp as a movie nowadays could, but in my opinion, it's still very seamless from the train scene and onward. And especially for the train scene, it's just a great steady buildup of action. The fight with Doc Ock sending the train completely forward, accelerating, knocking the controls, and knowing the tension that an entire train full of people could die makes for a really high-stakes Spider-Man moment. There's a reason why everyone remembers him webbing the side of a building to hold the train back. You see him try time after time, put his foot down, try and push it, and it's not working. Even to the point where some random jerk on the front's like, you got any more ideas? And I'm just like, you know what? Why don't you get in front of the train and try and stop it, you jerk? And even with Peter's constipation face that we meme, it's still such a triumphant moment, and definitely one of the most powerful Spider-Man moments I've seen, because it really shows the power of the character, how he has put so much of himself on the line to save others, even putting his hopes and dreams on the line for the good of others. And that is what Spider-Man does so well in this film, showing the cost of being a servant. Spider-Man is a hero. I like calling him that. The movie calls him that, and I do think he is. Spider-Man is the kind of character who will first rescue a cat from a tree, rescue a person, before he starts punching the bad guy. He's not the Punisher. He doesn't care about killing criminals or ending evil first. He is a helper. And we see that in this movie, that he struggles with helping. That he loses a lot of his life trying to help others, to the point that he stops being Spider-Man for a time. Which absolutely, I think, is the core of the story that really resonates with people all these years later. Spider-Man has always been a character about perseverance. In my Into the Spider-Verse episode, I talked about this idea of enduring faith. Yes, there is that first step you take where you are dedicating yourself to a cause. And specifically in real life, the most important one you can take is to follow Jesus, be his disciple, not just say, oh, sure, I believe God is real. No. You not only act like God is real, you act like he is Lord of your life and that he is calling you to serve, to be a part of his mission, to walk with him as a son or daughter of God. But that faith requires endurance. It requires the push to keep going. And what I love is that Aunt May herself describes Spider-Man and heroism in that same light. In the scene where she's packing up her house and we get some really good pathos, Aunt May says, "There's a hero in all of us." I think she's talking about Jesus. She was praying to God in the first movie. But she says, "There's a hero in all of us." And that's inspired. This is not part of the line. But that line is after she says that they'll tell of how they stood in the rain for hours. People will tell about how they stood in the rain for hours just to get a glimpse of the one who taught them to hold on a second longer. Aunt May's talking about Spider-Man. This scene helps Peter realize that even though he threw away the mantle, he needs to pick it back up. That faith requires endurance, pushing forward, not giving up. But before I start hammering that idea in, here is why we need to talk about what he goes through. Because the entire first half of this movie is all about showing that Peter is getting hit with so much hardship. And most of it is not his fault. There's the MJ stuff I talked about. But a lot of this movie, he is just trying to make ends meet. He is trying to help Aunt May. He is trying to keep a job. He's trying to keep going to college. He is trying at the same time to save people. What if he wasn't there when those two kids get hit by a car? They'd be dead. So it's a great thing that Spider-Man was there to save these children, but it still costs him. He loses his pizza job. He loses his ability to keep up his grades in college. He loses his ability to be with MJ, especially because he thinks that he can't tell MJ who he is, otherwise she'll get hurt. He doesn't give up the mantle just because I can't be with MJ. I think that's too simple of you. He gives up Spider-Man for a time because it gets too much. It gets too much to the point where it starts hindering his superpowers. He can't create webs. He stops being able to climb walls. And also his vision starts messing up. And we can assume everything else is out of whack too. He's losing himself because he's losing the things in his life that have made him Peter Parker. And so naturally, he gets to a point where it's so exhausting. It's so tiring that he wants to throw away the mantle. It's not selfishness. On the one hand, sure, it might be selfishness, but I think that's too apathetic to say, what, Peter was just being selfish by stopping to be Spider-Man. But what about us? What about the times in our life where we are called to be kind? That we have wanted to be a, quote, good person, but we stop because it's hard. Because it gets exhausting after time, where you try and be kind to somebody. You try to, quote, be a good person, whatever you define that as, Christian or not Christian. But trying to do that every single day gets exhausting. And there is a point where we just want to give up. So Peter does that. Peter stops being Spider-Man, that he just wants time to get his life together. And at first, things seem to be okay. Obviously, that's how storytelling would go. But he's more relaxed. He's able to work on a side project of building a bike. He's able to keep up his grades. He's able to talk to MJ, even though the cringy dialogue ensues. He starts to be able to put his life together, but it came at the cost of rejecting his mission. And as the story begins to show, Spider-Man is needed. Those powers are a responsibility. And he was given that responsibility not because God said, well, I want your life to suck, so I'm going to give you this burden. No. It's because Spider-Man is needed. That guy was getting beat up by those two muggers, and he needed someone to help him. The guy on the 4th floor of the building caught on fire ends up losing his life. And while I don't think it's fair to say Peter would have saved that guy if he was still Spider-Man, because we don't know, Peter realizes that Spider-Man is still needed. That even though we don't know if he would have saved that person, he could have. And for someone who presumably doesn't believe in God, that probably hits harder because in his mind, that life is gone. And because he's Peter Parker, he puts that burden on himself. A great thing they do in this movie with Dr. Octopus, Otto Octavius, is that they parallel what he wants to do with Peter. Both have a dream, a desire, things they want to do, but their ambition gets collided with their mission. Otto Octavius wants to create this giant ball of fire, a sun, for something sustainable energy. But the problem is, it's dangerous. It hasn't been tested enough. They needed to shut it down and continue the project in a safer way. And maybe it could have just been a lost cause because, creating a little sun kind of makes gravity go womp womp and everything goes crazy. But beyond whether the power of the sun in the palm of Otto's hand was helpful or not, it eventually became a selfish ambition. And as Aunt May says to help Peter, and what Peter ends up telling Otto, is that we learn sometimes we have to be steady and give up the things we want the most, even our dreams. And that is such a powerful thing to reconcile with, that Peter ends up coming to a conclusion where he says, even if I don't get Mary Jane, Spider-Man is needed. My mission that I've been given is with great power comes great responsibility. So that way, when a train is attacked, when two kids are going to be hit in the street by a car, there will be someone there. That a young Henry can grow up with a hero that encourages him to be a courageous, self-sacrificing person. And those qualities are best represented when we take it to real life and to the heart of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. No one likes being told to give up everything for something. We, especially as Americans, love to be comfortable. We love to have control over our own destiny, be able to do what we want to, pursue our dreams. America is known around the world as the land of opportunity. And for many people, it's a chance where they can pursue something they want to do, raise their local business, become an entrepreneur, engineer, something that maybe their country can't provide them. And those are good things. But there comes a time where people decide to go into the army. Because whenever a regime is taking over, or when people are going to attack innocent lives, people may have to give up their dreams in order to serve for a greater mission. It's why Jesus calls us to the Great Commission, to go out and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that He commanded us to do. And do you know what that meant for the people that heard that literally while Jesus was ascending into heaven? That meant for many of them, they forfeit a life of luxury or comfort. They left their hometowns, their homeland sometimes, and were telling people a message that was destined to get them murdered, that was going to get them flogged, impaled with spears, to leave all comfortability, to leave what made their lives feel good and safe, and give it all for the ultimate mission of preaching the gospel and telling others to come to Jesus to find complete and true life in Him. When I realized that's what the apostles had done to fulfill the Great Commission, what Paul had done all throughout the book of Acts and through his life that we don't even know about to further the church, it made me think, how faithful are those people? And how can I be just as faithful to God? And that ultimately is how God has used Spider-Man 2 to impact me. Into the Spider-Verse came out where God was already showing me how He used Spider-Man. But as a little Noel, growing up with this movie, and I only watched it because cool action scenes, because it's Spider-Man, because it's Dr. Octopus, because it's fun, it's exciting, and it's great it did that. But at the heart of this film, what it is teaching you, what it is ingraining into our brains, is what true sacrifice looks like for the good of mankind. But at the end of the day, Spider-Man is not only a fictional character, but Spider-Man is also a character that cannot fully save everyone. We see that throughout the stories, that Spider-Man is a human being. He can't save everybody. He went into that building to save that little girl, but he didn't save the guy on the fourth floor. And whether he had his powers or not, we don't know, but Spider-Man is not perfect. He is not a god, but there is a God, the one true God, who calls us to give our lives and sacrifice for him. And that's the part of Christianity that many people have a hard time grasping. That when we are called to Jesus, when we are putting the name Christian on ourselves as an identity, it is not an easy life. We are not signing you up for one specific lifestyle because life is going to be better, that you are going to get everything you want. We are not telling you to sign up to our religion for ease. In fact, real people who follow Jesus are going to tell you this is the hardest thing you're ever going to do. Following Jesus is a straight and narrow road for a reason. Jesus told a rich young ruler that it is, well, no, he didn't tell the rich young ruler. He told the rich young ruler to leave everything, all his possessions, and sell it to the poor, then come follow him. And the rich young ruler walked away sad because he loved his comfort. He loved his desires. And Jesus said, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter heaven. And so all of that is to say, in the cost of following God, are you willing to choose your mission over your MJ? Peter asks a phenomenal question after the fire scene where he asks, am I not supposed to have what I want? What I need? What am I supposed to do? And though I haven't said those exact words, I have asked that question in my heart multiple times. When I have tried to pursue a relationship, when I have tried to do this thing in college, there was a certain degree program I wanted to do, and I had to let it go. I had to understand that God was saying no. And I've had to reconcile that for the mission God has put me on, I may never get married. And I am saying this as somebody who is a full hopeless romantic. I watched so many Disney movies, and I still have that desire in my heart to meet someone. It's not all based on the sexual desires of my flesh. It is also based on genuine companionship, a best friend to walk alongside me. And I think that is something that has been given by God, that desire for marriage. And yet, I may have to let it go because God has a mission. And that mission is more important than my dreams. That's not fun to say. I don't like that I just said that. And yet, God does not do this because he is a monster. It's because he is the good Father, and he knows what we need. And he knows that the life he is preparing is so much more filling than what we want. God knew that when he was asking Abraham to put his son on the altar and sacrifice him, that it was actually for Abraham's good. It was showing a devotion to God over his own son, which God gave Abraham. And if you choose that mission, God will give you all you need. Do you worry that you are not going to have a fulfilled life? If you don't follow Jesus, I genuinely wonder, why is that? Do you just genuinely believe that it doesn't make sense that Jesus is God? Do you fear what it would look like to give your heart to him? To choose a life of following Jesus? I know I'm not doing a great pitch, one that is going to reassure you of all the good things. I have said it's hard. It requires suffering. Peter Parker knows suffering. We see it all throughout this film. But there was another man named Peter, one of Jesus' best friends. And in his first letter, Peter talks about being refined by fire. And that doesn't feel fun. Have you ever stood in fire before? I haven't, but I've been close enough to know it hurts just to be close to it. So being in it, refined by it, would hurt. And yet refining is done so that when it comes out of the fire is made stronger, better, more beautiful. And that is what following God is. It is hard. It is not going to be easy, but it is so worth it. It is everything. You actually gain a real life. You can have a life without Jesus, but it will never be perfect. It will never be fulfilled. I could just enjoy Spider-Man and talk about the philosophy of stories, and that would be great. Cool. Fun life. But if it's not anchored in someone deeper, in someone who loves us, who made these morals come into existence rather than it just being engineered in our brains and we evolutionarily discovered it, that's not a word, but the idea that we just came up with these good morals for the sake of good morals, that is so empty compared to a God who made you, who loves you, and wants you to be a part of his kingdom, who wants to put you on a mission that, yes, will be hard, but one that will refine you and make you stronger. That's what Peter experiences in this movie, is that he goes through these hardships. He struggles with his life, and it sucks. I'm not trying to take that away. And yet, at the end of this movie, he is a much better Spider-Man. And we know by the third movie, there is fruit for what happens. And in our lives, when we are choosing the mission, God will give us what we need. God wants to give good things to us. Matthew 7, verses 7 through 11, is when Jesus is giving his Sermon on the Mount. And while he's been talking about truths that are hard to hear, shocking to hear, especially for the people who heard it for the first time, Jesus adds to his sermon, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? If he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him?" And this is not just saying you get what you want, that you get your dreams. You could get your dreams. But what Jesus is pointing to is that God loves us. Even if he says no to things we may want, he wants to give good gifts. And the gifts he gives are the ones we actually need, and we will come to see later in life as far better than whatever pea-brained idea we had in our heads. For my story, when I've asked God to let me be in a relationship, there was one girl since 5th grade on to high school. I loved her. At least in my brain, it was all hormones, but I thought, I love her. She's awesome. And I remember spending like 30 minutes one night praying to God, asking that we would be married, that I said she could be my girlfriend. I prayed, and I prayed that day after day, year after year, and I tried to act on it in some very cringy ways, worse than Peter in this movie. And nowadays, I see where she is. I'm now in a space where I pray for her to come back to life, to turn away from the worldly ways she is living, how she is hurting herself, how she's living an aimless life full of sadness and heartbreak because she did not choose the mission of God over her MJ. Once youth group was done, she went off and did her own thing, followed what she wanted. And none of it was inherently bad, but now she is lost. And so I asked God for that, but he said no. And I'm in a space now where I am so much more full of life and I have more joy because of God. Not because I'm a better person than that girl I liked, but because God didn't put me in a relationship where I could have been led away from him. He knew what I needed. And he put me in that place where I could choose him by saying no to what I wanted. And yet there are so many other gifts he can give. For example, I wanted a microphone so I could do voice acting. I wanted to start my voice acting career on here. And on the one hand, it's still possible it could happen. But the way God put things into my heart and ideas, voice acting hasn't aired out for me. And yet, through that desire of voice acting, he gave me a gift so much more valuable. This podcast. And it doesn't matter if no one is listening to this right now, because you know what, God, I thank you that because I wanted something, you gave a good gift and you let me do this, because now I've had so many great experiences sitting down with friends, talking about art, and all these emotions and excitement I get from talking about Spider-Man 2 or other things are brought into reality because, God, you are the one who gave me this idea, brought me this platform. And if no one else listens to it, then it is a gift from you that can still put these thoughts and feelings out into the world. You provided all I need. And in our lives, where we go, wherever you are, whoever is listening right now, wherever you are, when you give yourself to the mission of God, when you choose God over your MJ, your mission over your MJ, he will bring those gifts. They may not be what you think they are, but they are going to be so much better than whatever you could imagine. Paul, I brought him up. He left a life of being wealthy, of being a Pharisee, a high-end religious teacher. He could have lived in his elitist view of, I am a Pharisee. We are the best set-apart people from God. I also am the Israelite, one of God's chosen people. I have so much money. I have so much status in Israel and in the Roman Empire. And yet, he left it all for Jesus Christ. He stopped persecuting the church. He stopped hurting people. And though he became poor, he said that he counts all of it as loss for the surpassing worth of knowing Jesus Christ, his Lord. That's Philippians 3. But then in Philippians 4, he goes on to talk to his friends about where he is. He is currently in prison whenever he is writing to the Philippian church. And yet here is what he says. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you, the Philippian church, have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I am speaking of being in need. And we're going to pause right there. He is in prison right now. It's home prison. He's literally chained up to a centurion guard because that's how they would chain up high-end prisoners by this point. And so he doesn't need anything while you're chained up to an Imperial Stormtrooper equivalent. You don't need any help. You're in prison, Paul. How could you say that you don't need anything? And I'm going to get back to it. Paul tells the Philippian church, not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Pausing. And that includes being imprisoned. Going back to verse 12. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound in any and every circumstance. I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. That's where that verse comes from. Not from a place of, well, I can lift this 3,000-pound bar because I say I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. No. It comes from a place of surrender, of choosing the mission of God, of saying, yes, I don't live a wealthy life now, but it means jack squat in comparison to Jesus Christ, my King, of choosing him. And that's what I'm trying to ask of you. Are you willing to be a Spider-Man for God? And sure, that can sound goofy, but Spider-Man is not just a skin-tight, costumed superhero. For me and many others, he is a symbol of perseverance, of hope, of what it looks like to be a hero when the world despises heroes. So in real life, will you take on the hardest challenge of choosing the mission of God, to choose to follow Jesus Christ, your Lord, to call him your Lord and Savior, to say to the Great Commission, I will go. You know what? I am not going to stay where I am. And that is something I also want to talk about in the Great Commission. I am planning on moving from the United States of America to a far less reached country for the gospel. Does that mean I'm a better Christian than others? No. In fact, it's really scary. And having been to that country for 2 months, it was some of the hardest moments of my life, where my suicidal ideations became so strong. My loneliness peaked in ways I had never imagined it could. And yet I count leaving my hometown in Missouri, leaving my friends, leaving comfortability, choosing a life of lack of riches, and maybe even never being married, never gaining my dream, I count it all as loss for the surpassing worth of following Jesus Christ my Lord and taking on his mission. And you know, that's the most beautiful thing about taking on his mission. God doesn't just call us to be a Spider-Man so we can suffer. It's not about suffering. It's actually about true life. The words are hard to hear. Jesus had said that he had come to set man against his father, daughter against mother, daughter-in-law against his mother-in-law. A person's enemies will be those of their own household. Jesus says you must forfeit your family for the kingdom of God. You must forfeit comfort, what you want, your dreams, your desires, whether it's to build the power of the sun, whether it's to have the girl of your dreams, even just having a stable life, which is another thing Peter Parker wanted, to forfeit all of that for the greater mission, for the good of mankind. Well, some people will interpret that as whatever they want to. The hard truth, even if I am not the one to say it, is that the true mission for the good of mankind is Jesus. The world needs Jesus Christ. And whoever does not take up their cross and follow Jesus is not worthy of him. And whoever loses his life for Jesus' sake will find it. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after Jesus cannot be his disciple. And rounding this all up, are you willing to hear those verses and instead of say, that's too hard, instead of saying, Christianity is too exclusive, instead of saying, that God is too selfish, will you hear those words and choose to be humble to them? Instead of saying, am I not entitled to the life that I want? Will you choose to take a leap of faith like Peter Parker did? He doesn't call it a leap of faith in this movie, but he does leap with strong focus on what he wants. And it gives him the strength to not only become Spider-Man again, but to also do his mission, where he finds that he does get to have MJ and his mission together. He shouldn't have MJ because she's a horrible person, but that's besides the point. Peter got his dream after he realized the mission came first. And I don't know what God has planned for you, but if you are willing to choose him, if you will choose Jesus, your mission, over whatever you want right now, then it's all going to be better. You will get the dreams you want, or you might get new dreams that you never had even thought of and will realize are better than your old ones. Because God doesn't think like we do. During a time where the people of Israel had generation upon generation of evil, of rejecting God, the prophet Isaiah spoke to them and gave these powerful words in his book of chapter 55, verse 6 through 7. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. He will not only forgive your sins, but he will give you life. And that leads into verses 7 and 8. The Lord says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So, can we let Spider-Man 2, this great superhero movie, on National Spider-Man Day, be a beacon that tells you, come to Jesus? Can we use the symbol of a hero with perseverance to say, the kingdom of heaven is open to you. God wants you to take his hand, and he is going to swing you into a better life, a complete life, a life where if you choose the hard thing, if you choose the mission over your desires, against your own selfish will, against my own selfish will, then we will find true life. Will we choose to not die a monster? Or in this case, will we choose to not die a stubborn sinner and choose to become new creations under the banner of Jesus Christ? Not because of anything we've done, but because he is that good. And it all comes from his heart of loving you. And in the same way, he's used Spider-Man to reach me with that truth I pray he has used this character, this movie, maybe this episode, to reach you and let you know that above everything he made, he was happiest when he made you. And with that, I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really relied on the Holy Spirit to push these ideas forward. I love Spider-Man. I'm a humongous fan of this character, but it means jack squat when it comes to Jesus. And if Jesus told me to let go of Spider-Man for the mission, then, hey, may this episode be a great last hurrah to the character. Because at the end of the day, he is amazing. And all is lost for the surpassing worth of knowing Jesus Christ my Lord. But yet in his greatness, he let Spider-Man be a gift to me that could reach him in ways I had not imagined. To show me a character I love following the path of a mission over an MJ. And if that reached you today, then I would really appreciate if you left a positive rating. Maybe I can use those ratings to get some revenue and then have pizza time for this National Spider-Man Day. You never know. Maybe I should get a pizza when it's National Spider-Man Day, just for the meme. I don't know. But I'm so thankful that you came to listen to this. My email is in the show notes if you would love to conversate with me, if you want to talk Spider-Man. If you have any ideas for other episodes that you'd want me to create, any pieces of media that you would like me to dive into, then if I don't already have it on my wish list, then I'll happily add it and make sure those episodes come into reality. But until then, may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, and may your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Happy National Spider-Man Day, everybody, and grace be with you all.